It does adjust up, down, left, right, however you need it. But if you just speak directly and a loud, clear voice into the microphone, it will pick up everything.
Thank you, sir.
And please state your name.
Barbara J. Russell.
Can you spell Barbara Ann Russell?
BARBARARUSSELL.
And what is your profession?
I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I have a doctorate in clinical psychology, and I work as a clinical and forensic mental health professional.
Okay. And how long have you known Ashley Benefield?
I've known her since April of 2020.
Okay. And when you first became involved with Ashley, it was on a professional level, correct?
Correct.
All right. And then since the time that you had that interaction, you have stayed in touch with Ashley?
Correct.
Okay. And subsequent to the shooting that happened, she actually moved into your house, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And who all lived at the house?
Myself, my husband, and my 19-year-old daughter.
All right. And approximately how long did she live at your house?
Approximately 8 months.
And you would see her on a daily basis?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay. Did she, when you first spoke, when did you first see her or speak to her after the shooting?
About 1 o'clock the following morning.
Okay, so this happened in the evening time, so it would have been 1 o'clock the next morning. And at that time, did she say to you, oh my God, he came after me, I had to shoot him? Did she say that?
She didn't discuss what had happened at all, nor did I ask.
Okay. And to this day, are you still in contact with her?
Not that one. I'll overrule on that question.
To this day, are you still in contact with her?
Yes.
Okay. And to this day, has she ever told you what prompted her shooting, Doug Benefield?
She never gave any kind of narrative of what prompted the shooting. My understanding is that
I just want to know if she told you. I just want to know what she told you. She did not tell you anything, correct?
She never gave me any narrative about what had happened.
Thank you. No further questions.
Cross, sir.
Good morning, Dr. Russell. I have a question from your own personal knowledge. You're aware that Ashley's lawyers instructed her not to discuss the facts, correct?
Of course, any good lawyer would do that.
Give me just a moment, Your Honor.
Of course. Yes, sir.
Did there come a time, Dr. Russell, when a detective, Warren, contacted you about the case?
Yes.
Did you have discussions with Detective Warren?
I met with him once, yes, for about 90 minutes.
And in that meeting, did you relate to him that...
Objection, yourself.
I'm asking a question to this witness.
Well, I understand, but if it calls for hearsay, why don't you approach so I can hear what the question is going to be?
When you spoke to Detective Warren, Justin, you identified yourself.
Correct.
Okay. This was a face-to-face conversation.
Yes.
If you were to tell us today in court about the discussion you had with Detective Justin, would it be any different than what you told Detective Justin on that day?
No, of course not.
You have an opinion, do you not?
Objection.
Rephrase. As you sit here today, do you have a conclusion?
Objection.
Sustained.
All right, give me a moment. that were entered yesterday. Dr. Russell, you had an opportunity that morning, from what you had to say at approximately 1 o'clock, technically the next day, to observe Miss Benefield, correct?
Yes.
I'm going to pass you a picture that's previously been marked as State's Exhibit number 21, picture of Ashley Benefield that was taken on the day of the incident.
Yes.
May I approach you on it?
Yes.
Does that picture reflect any swelling to Ashley Benefield?
Objection, as interpreting the picture.
Sustained.
Did Ashley Benefield look like that when you saw her prior to the day of the homicide?
Prior to the day, no.
Okay. What was different about her?
When I saw her after the incident, there was edema, swelling on the side of her face.
Okay, and did that include her right eye?
It included her left eye.
Left eye, rather?
Yes.
Okay. And when you saw her before the homicide, did she have swelling on the left side of her face, on her cheek and her eyelid?
She never had, no.
In fact, when you saw her immediately following the incident that morning at about 1 a.m., was there any indication that by Ashley that her head was hurting?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Spontaneous statement, Your Honor.
That existing mental, emotional, physical condition?
Can we approach?
Yes.
Did Ms. Benefield that morning give you any indication that she was in pain?
Yes.
And did you refer to any particular area?
Yes.
What?
Her head.
Thank you.
Redirect.
No.
Can this witness be released?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, no.
Speak in a loud, clear voice right into that microphone. It'll pick up everything.
Okay, great, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Hi, sorry I spilled water.
Please state your name.
Dr. Jason Quintel.
How do you spell your last name?
It's Quintal.
What is your profession?
I am a mental health counselor
How long have you been a mental health counselor?
since 1998.
And where's your office?
My office is in Lakewood Ranch, off of State Road 70.
And how long have you been there?
That location we moved into in 2018. Prior to that, we were on Lena Road from 2008 on, and then prior to that, 2006.
And at some point, did you become familiar with Doug and Ashley Benefield?
Yes,
Okay. And when was this?
that would have been in 2020.
And do you recall about when in 2020 that was?
They came in for their first visit as a couple's visit on 7/15/2020.
Okay. So we heard from Dr. Broder, he was talking about his goal was to do an evaluation. What was your goal with meeting with them? Was it an evaluation or? something else?
No, I was referred by another therapist to do trauma resolution treatment for both Doug and Ashley.
Okay. And as part of that, did you meet with them together as well as separate, or how did that work?
I did. I met with them originally as a couple. We ended the treatment as a couple, and then there were individual sessions in between.
Okay. I won't hold you to this, but about how many times did you see them?
So I met with Doug twice individually, Ashley 5 times individually, both of them as a couple twice. There was a total of 4 hours for couples, 10.5 hours for Ashley, and 4.5 hours for Doug.
Okay. And at the first session, did it seem to you as though, let me back up. The first session, was it together?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And during that first session, did it seem as though they wanted to work things out?
During the first session, they talked about, yes, they wanted to work things out.
Okay. When they were together, did they indicate they wanted to get back together, like reunify?
The goal was for them to reunify and moving to Maryland.
Okay. When Ashley met with you by herself, did she still make that representation?
That they were moving to Maryland, yes.
Okay. And was there anything different about her representation?
Ashley was different when she was separate from Doug in terms of more descriptive of things that had happened between the two of them that troubled her. So some stuff that was scary.
And we won't get into specifics, but
Ask the question, he's entitled to complete his answer.
Overruled.
so did she indicate she still wanted to reconcile with him when she was with you alone?
Overruled.
Did she say she wanted to reconcile with him when she was alone with you?
So I don't recall whether she said she wanted to reconcile with him or not. I think that there were challenges in their marriage and she was questioning whether she wanted to be with him or not.
Okay. Did Ashley tell you that she and Doug were also seeing Dr. Broder?
They both mentioned that Dr. Broder was doing an evaluation, and I didn't know what it was regarding.
Okay. And did Ashley say to you at any time that she was frustrated with the system?
I think Ashley was discouraged. There had been many things brought up, accusations, CPS, judge, that didn't go her way. So I think there was definitely some discouragement with that.
Okay.
And
I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
Did she express any frustration at the time it was taking for Dr. Broder's report?
Yeah, she thought that that was taking a very long time.
Okay. And did she express to you that she was worried about what his report would say or worried about when the report was released?
She was worried about what it would say. She said if it were to be disparaging of Doug, she was concerned that he would be upset and take some form of retribution with that.
Okay. Did she, the last time that you saw them was when?
The last visit was on 9/25/20.
Do you remember what day of the week that was? You might not, but.
Maybe Thursday, Friday?
Okay.
I can look if you need that.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
And about what time of day was it?
I believe that was a morning session, 10:30-ish.
Okay. Did they say Dr. Broder's report was done?
I don't recall them saying that the report was done. I know that they had been waiting on it, and it was supposed to determine specific things for how they move forward.
Okay. And did they indicate when they were going to court next?
I do not know that. I don't recall anything mentioned
Okay.
about when court was.
did they indicate to you when they expected they were going to have access to that report? Excuse me.
No, I don't. There was not a when the report was going to be released. It was going to happen at some point.
Okay.
My understanding is that they still had plans to move to Maryland.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay.
Cross.
Afternoon, Dr. Quintel.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good. So, tell us why, when you met with them, Ashley was different when she was alone and when she was together with Doug in meeting with you.
So Ashley presented that she was concerned about Doug. There was prior acts of violence, shooting a gun, no.
Sustained.
I'm not going to get into specifics.
Okay, without. Yeah. Oh, you have no idea. Without.
Why don't you go ahead, excuse me, Deputy, would you please go ahead and take the jury out? All right, Mr. Taylor, you may resume your cross-examination.
Thank you. Doctor, did you, as a result of meeting with the two of them together and separately, did you reach any conclusions about the relationship?
Objection, relevance.
All right, you can approach.
Did you make any inquiry, Doctor, about why Doug Benefield would want to stay in this relationship?
Objection, you're saying.
Overruled.
You can answer.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Was there any observation by you in response to why Doug Benefield would want to remain in this relationship with Ashley Benefield?
I questioned why both would want to stay in the relationship, but specifically to answer the question with Doug, I did bring that up in a session, that it seems like Ashley is saying very disparaging comments, and I'm not sure why and what you see in that ongoingly moving forward. I did bring that up to him.
In fact, you were perplexed by it, were you not?
I was confused, sure. It did, yeah.
Would it be a fair conclusion to say that he was hell-bent on staying with her?
I would say that he really wanted the relationship to work from everything that he told me.
Okay. We're going to have to recall you, so I'm done.
Redirect?
No.
All right, sir.
Fair enough.
Bless you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Judge, just for the record, we renew all prior objections.
Yes, sir. Overruled.
Please state your name.
Brad Stephen Broder,
How do you spell your last name?
Broeder.
What is your profession?
I'm a psychologist, clinical psychologist licensed here in the state of Florida and in New York State.
And how long have you been a clinical psychologist?
I got my PhD in clinical psychology back in December of 1986.
And when did you move to Florida? I think you said New York? You were in New York before.
Correct. I first practiced in New York and relocated here in the summer of 96. I was licensed here by February of 1997 and have been practicing here ever since.
Okay. And do you have your own private practice?
Exactly. I'm a solo practitioner.
Okay. Do you also do some, what I would call consulting work for the Child Protection Team or Child Protective Services?
Yes, I've been a consulting psychologist to the Sarasota County Child Protection Team since the summer of 1999, and several years later was hired as a consulting psychologist by Manatee Children's Services, which is their name for their child protection team. Pardon me. And recently have been contracted with the Fort Myers Child Protection Team. That's just as of this summer.
Okay. And can you just briefly explain what are your duties with reference to being a contractor for the Child Protection Team? What do you generally do?
Well, through the Department of Health, each county in the state of Florida is supposed to have a consulting psychologist on their team, and that is for several reasons. One, it helps out with supervisory cases if on an as-needed basis, as well as once or twice a year there's supposed to be in-service trainings where you conduct seminars, do presentations to help the staff there. But primarily it's to attend the multidisciplinary staffings, which they're asking the consultant to come in and discuss a certain case, what might be going on, if you have any kind of impressions or recommendations. Based upon those kind of meetings, then sometimes the psychologist myself would be asked to conduct an evaluation.
Okay. And ultimately, were you asked to conduct an evaluation of Doug and Ashley and Emerson Benefield?
I was specifically asked to conduct psychological evaluations on each of the parents, both Doug and Ashley, but not their child, Emerson.
Okay. The child was pretty young, correct?
2 years, 4 months to be exact, during the time I did the evaluation in the summer of 2020.
Okay. So you started the evaluation about when? You said summer, but...
I believe it was June 1st to be exact when I first met Ashley, and the next day I had met Doug for the initial intake interviews.
Okay. And what was the general goal of these interviews? You eventually were going to report back, I would assume, to the entity that hired you?
Yes, each psychological evaluation is meant to be submitting a report with diagnostic impressions and recommendations based upon the data that's been collected. The evaluation is based upon whatever the CPT recommendation was, meaning referral for the recommended evaluation. In this case, Manatee Children's Services had specific questions about each parent.
Okay. So, and your evaluation is generally focused toward the best interest of the child. Would that be a correct statement?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So you said you first began this around June 1st of 2020?
That's correct.
Did you ultimately complete evaluations of Doug Benefield and Ashley Benefield?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And as part of this evaluation process, did you review documents?
There's a series of steps in any thorough psychological evaluation, which includes collateral data, which is both defined as interviewing other people as well as reviewing documents, yes.
Okay. And did you do that? You reviewed documents?
If I may, I just brought the reports along with me in case I had to refer to them. But yeah, there was
Sure.
a series of documents reviewed for each of them.
Okay, and we don't need to get into specifics about what the documents were, but you did review several documents for each of them.
I certainly did, yes.
Okay. And what is a collateral interview?
That's when I ask each person to give me a couple names of people that they think understands their situation best that I could contact and call and just do kind of a phone interview. If possible, obviously a face-to-face interview is preferable, but based upon where people are situated and located, sometimes it's just easier to have that telephone conversation. So there are certain people, like the people through Manatee Children's Services, that I was going to be speaking to, for example, Kimberly Griffin, who is the case coordinator. But in addition to that, I asked both Ashley and Doug for their own people that they'd want me to speak to. But then, of course, doing the evaluation, I have the kind of wherewithal based upon what I learned from them if there are other people I need to speak to or that I believe I should speak to in order to get a more complete picture of the individual.
Okay. And did you, in fact, do that with reference to both of them? Speak
Yes,
to collateral contact?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Okay. Did you meet with Doug and Ashley and Emerson together or separate?
Given the structure of their family unit, I had multiple interviews with each of them individually. I had several interviews with them together, a couple of interviews with them together as the couple, but several additional interviews with them when they would exchange Emerson at my office, and when we would, kind of see how that the drop off or the exchange goes. But I had also seen each parent with the child both in their residence as well as in my office. So there were multiple interviews.
Okay, so this sounds pretty extensive. So how much time did it go on over?
Throughout the summer of 2020, I think the report was actually completed and submitted on September 14th of 2020.
So I want to speak with you about Ashley specifically. Did she ever show any hesitation about meeting you with Doug present?
No.
Okay. Did she act differently when she was with Doug meeting you as opposed to when she was not with Doug meeting with you?
As I had indicated or described in my report, she did demonstrate or present with a different demeanor when seen together versus when I would just see her individually.
Okay. And when you saw the two of them together, did they discuss the plans for going forward? And I'm talking about moving. So did they discuss that with you?
Ashley had made it very clear that she had every intention and desire to relocate back to her home state of Maryland. Doug had the impression that this was something that he too could do because he had some connections through the Defense Department and some of the work that he did. He felt he'd have more clients up there, so he was perceiving that as he shared with me, a fresh start that they could reconcile and be together in Maryland.
And when Ashley and Doug met with you together, did Ashley indicate that this was the plan, that they were moving all together as a group?
Ashley had no intention of moving together as a group. She had every intention of moving with her mother and Emerson and becoming situated in her grandmother had passed away and the mother had inherited the house, so they had their residence established. So she had that plan.
Okay. And so I guess I wasn't being very clear. Were they moving their items together, like same U-Haul truck?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. So Ashley never told you about that?
Quite to the contrary, she made it clear that she did not want him to move in, regardless of what he thought or whatever he was planning. That was not part of the plan.
Okay. And when she was alone, she would indicate to you those things that you just described? Or
Yes,
did she indicate that when she was with Doug?
When she was with me during our individual meetings.
Okay. When she was with Doug, how was her demeanor? How was her attitude about those issues?
She would basically respond in a very deferential way. She would let him say what he wanted to say, but my focus was not so much on what their future plans were. They weren't even officially divorced. My focus was, again, getting back to the point about the best interest of the child. The child protection team is, how do we get this family out of this stressful situation and then create something that's going to be better for Emerson.
Okay. Did Doug, during your joint sessions, did Doug express in front of Ashley that his hopes that moving forward this was going to be an attempt at reconciliation? Did he express that in front of Ashley?
Yes, he did.
Okay. Did Ashley ever correct him and say, whoa, wait a minute. No, we're not doing that?
Not really. I think the closest she ever got to that was to kind of say, well, just kind of slow it down and, we'll talk about that later. And that's, that kind of thing. She would kind of deflect attention away from that.
Okay. And did she ever say in one of her...
Away from that.
Okay. And did she ever say in one of her individual sessions with you, did she ever say anything to you about she was running out of time and needed to move to Maryland or something like that? Do you recall?
Yes, we had that discussion in one of the sessions.
And can you just explain what she said about that?
In essence, she was very frustrated and concerned that
I'm not going to object to, as I understand it, he's called as a fact witness, and he's giving opinions.
Overruled.
Okay, you can answer the question. What was it that she said about the issue of running out of time and wanting to move to Maryland?
she was openly sharing with me her utter frustration with the sheriff's office, with CPT, with the court system, indirectly with myself, although she had also complimented me by thanking me for doing a quote-unquote thorough job. But who was going to look out for Emerson, who was going to help Emerson, and she needed to do something. She needed this to be over with so she could get on with her life. She used the phrase, "My life is in a shambles."
Okay. And did she make any statements to you about why she needed this to be over so quickly? Or why was it, did she feel it was taking too long? I guess should be my question.
She certainly felt it took too long, and she just wanted to get on with her life.
Okay. Did she admit to you that she was, in fact, going to marriage counseling with Doug?
She had been in agreement with them starting with a second marriage counselor, Dr. Quintel, after their attempts at marriage counseling with Sharon Foster had not worked out.
Okay. So she indicated that their intent to go to Dr. Quintel. But during the same time, was she still saying they would not reconcile, or she was saying they did want to reconcile?
I don't think she ever used the word reconcile when with Doug. She clearly made it very clear to me that she had no intention of reconciling.
Okay. And during this time, I would say the year at least before your meeting, did Ashley talk to you about doing things with Doug? And for instance, I'm talking about lunch and activities. Did she talk to you about that?
Throughout the time that I worked with them, it was very clear they were very open, sharing with me the things that they would do together, such as, for example, the hit movie that particular summer was the sci-fi thriller Tenet, T-E-N-E-T, and they had agreed to go see that so the grandma could watch Emerson. They have a quote-unquote date. They enjoyed the movie so much, but also found it kind of confusing and hard to follow that they agreed to see it a second time together and had a follow-up date for that movie. But in addition to that, they had done other things. She would go to Doug's apartment complex where they could use the community pool and take Emerson into the pool. They shared with me that they had gone to the beach. She described in detail watching Doug, I think it was Father's Day specifically in my notes there, where she described how nice it was to see Doug playing with Emerson, playing in the sand with Emerson. And so then from there they would go out to lunch or go out to dinner, sometimes with Emerson and the grandmother, sometimes without. So they were, throughout the time I was working with them, they were seeing each other.
Okay. Did Ashley ever talk to you about the birth certificate for Emerson?
Naturally, in this kind of evaluation, since it concerns a child, they talk about the child and the marriage and the relationship and see each parent with the child. So yeah, that came up. She gave birth at Tampa General Hospital and signed the birth certificate. Emerson Grace Caney.
And do you know whose name Caney is?
She wanted to keep her grandfather's family name, and so therefore she used that name.
Okay, so the child wasn't named Benefield.
Was not.
And did she ever did she indicate to you whether she ever put Doug on the birth certificate as the father?
She did not. That became a point of contention for the two of them, things that they were discussing, changing the name from Emerson Grace Caney to Emerson Caney Benefield. That was an issue that they were discussing.
And did she ever admit to you that she didn't tell Doug that she was even giving birth?
She shared that she did not inform him.
Okay. And you mentioned a little while ago that she was frustrated with some of the agencies. I think you said law enforcement, the courts, that kind of a thing. Did she express why she was upset with them?
She felt that Doug was unfit to parent Emerson, that he was only using the child to get her back, to win her back, so to speak.
Okay. And these agencies, they played into that, or they didn't play into that?
What was described and came out of our discussions in the interview sessions was that she felt that no one was willing to step forward to protect Emerson, that they all got it wrong, for example. So
Okay.
when CPT evaluated the situation where she had bruising on the neck, she described to me that it was several days later, so the bruising didn't show up, and that went down as unsubstantiated, so it was never followed up on. And
Okay. So she basically felt like they were getting it wrong. These agencies were getting it wrong.
no one was protecting Emerson. She did not
Okay.
agree with that.
During one of your last meetings with Ashley, did you have a conversation with her in your waiting room?
The day after, a day or two after the report was submitted on the 14th, Ashley showed up in my waiting room, unexpected, unannounced, and she wanted a copy of the report. And I had explained to her procedurally that the work product that I produce is then the property, in this case, of Manatee Children's Services, and had submitted to them. But I let her know that, you know, she'd be able to get a copy through her attorney, but they did have to get a court order to release it, and that's usually what happens. It's kind of a formality, but it's no longer something for me to share or divulge.
Okay. And did she have a reaction to that?
Her reaction was that she felt, again, very frustrated, thwarted in her efforts. She wanted to get on with her life, and she felt she needed to know what was going to be recommended so she could move on.
Okay. And during that conversation with her, did she say anything that that struck you as interesting during that conversation with her?
Well, she had explained previously and then repeated it then that once she was able to relocate to Maryland, she wanted to establish residence, as she had, in essence, researched it, knowing that if she had established residence for at least 6 months, she could then appeal to the authorities in Maryland to get relief and have Emerson, basically have full custody of Emerson and not that. So she had used the phrase during that conversation that she would take matters into her own hands.
Okay. And did she express to you at that time about being frustrated about the timing, things weren't going fast enough?
By that time, she was, again, ready to move on, and she was frustrated with the entire system.
Okay. And did she make any more statements to you at that time?
Not that I recall. Again, I tried to encourage her to be patient, that her attorney would definitely be able to get a copy of the report, and they could, work things out once they read the report, and they should be able to settle things.
Okay. And did she ever say what she would do if it wasn't fast enough?
No, I don't think she specified anything more than her desire to, again, get on with her life.
Okay. When was the last time that you saw Ashley? Was it that day that you're talking about?
When she came to the office unexpectedly, yes, that was the last time. Prior to that, the last time I actually saw them was, I saw Doug on September 7th, and then I believe I saw them together on the 10th of September.
Okay. And the last time that you saw them together, how did they seem? Did they seem the same as they had the times that you had seen them before?
Well, Doug, too, was becoming frustrated because he was viewing this as a fresh start, as I said.
Sustained.
Yes.
And how long was that report?
27 pages.
And did you do the same type of a report for Doug?
Yes,
And was it about the same length?
I think 24 pages.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 25 pages.
Okay. And I think you already explained this, but you turned your report over to CPT when?
September 14th.
September 14th. Okay. And then what happens to it after that is not in your hands.
It is, sometimes I find out, sometimes I get feedback, sometimes I don't. It's the work product goes to, in this case, Manatee Children's Services, and
Okay. And did any of your evaluation or contacts give you any concern for the safety of Ashley or her child going forward?
their original marriage therapist, Sharon Forrest, had concerns. She certainly expressed concerns, yes.
Did you have any concerns? Well, let me ask you this. Did Ashley Benefield ever say to you that Doug physically harmed her?
No.
Did she present you to you as being fearful for her own safety at the time she was having sessions with you?
Her concern was all about the safety of Emerson, not about herself.
Okay. Thank you. No other questions?
Excuse me.
Cross?
Give me just a moment, Your Honor. Dr. Broder, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
We've met before.
Yes, sir.
Your history in this case has wound its way through to where we are today, and it's encompassed prior proceedings, has it not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you've had occasion to sit for a deposition in this case,
Yes, correct.
and you've also given previous testimony.
Twice before in the
All right.
dependency
Don't
case.
don't tell me where.
Okay.
So you've told us that Ashley would act one way when she was with you, but she would act differently when she was with Doug. Correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And your conclusion that you reached was that she would appease Doug. Was that not the case?
Ashley had shared with me a number of times that she felt the best way to keep Doug at bay so he wouldn't hurt Emerson was to kind of appease him, to kind of go along with him.
Yes, in your words, I believe in your report, go along, get along.
I believe that's correct.
Correct?
Yes.
And that would be especially the case when Emerson was involved.
Yes.
All right. So, for example, if she didn't particularly want to be in the... I think you told us, Dr. Broder, that this policy of appeasement was designed by Ms. Benefield to basically placate Doug Benefield.
I think I would use the word strategy. That was her idea of trying to.
Yes, to placate him. In other words, to not set him off.
She knew that she wanted to reconcile, so she wanted to kind of, I think, feed into that so he wouldn't, given her belief that he might hurt Emerson.
Okay. And you, did you decide whether or not the signs were there, but that Doug Benefield refused to recognize them? That she wanted no part of a marriage to him?
Let me make sure I understand the question. Are you saying, did I discuss with him about the signs?
Did you acknowledge during the course of these evaluations that the signs were there that Ms. Benefield did not want to be in this relationship with Doug Benefield, but he misinterpreted them and insisted on trying to be with her?
Unlike therapy and evaluation, you're constantly generating hypotheses, meaning asking other questions to make an assessment of the overall situation, different than a therapeutic relationship where you might be making interpretive statements and recommendations.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you consider that Ashley's position was that Doug was only interested in her and not in the child?
I certainly considered that, yes.
And that was Miss Benefield's position, was it not?
That his sole aim was to win her back, yes.
The abuse complaints, without giving me names, they were initiated by more than the same person, correct?
Correct.
In fact, there was.
Objection yourself.
Finish your question.
In fact, there was at least 3 different sources.
I'll overrule. Go ahead.
I believe there were 3, correct.
And 2 of those sources were professionals.
Objection.
Sustained.
She expressed to you, did she not, real frustration with the system and its responsiveness to her situation?
Yes, she did. She was very forthright.
And she told you that with respect to taking matters into her own hands, it was going to be by virtue of her going to Maryland and petitioning the authorities there.
My concern was that she was going to impulsively abscond with the child and go to Maryland and, yes, establish residence separate and apart from Doug.
Okay, that she would have access to the authorities there, that they might be more responsive.
That was her hope, her goal, yes.
All right. Are you familiar in your practice with domestic violence?
Yes.
Have you treated it before?
I've assessed it and treated it on occasion, yes.
Did Douglas Benefield, from what you learned as a result of your involvement in this case, exhibit
Objection.
Go and finish your question.
symptoms consistent with the domestic violence abuser?
Sustained.
Give me a minute, Your Honor. One other area of inquiry, if the court will allow me. Did you find anything aggressive about Ashley Benefield?
No.
Did you find that Ashley Benefield had any impulse or was prone to angry outbursts?
Well, that's 2 different things, impulsivity and angry outbursts. I did not find her to be having angry outbursts, no.
You in fact concluded she was a good mother.
Yes, I observed her many times.
That's all. We'd like to keep Dr. Broder under subpoena.
Redirect?
You're familiar with mandatory reporting laws, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And what does that mean, mandatory reporter?
The mere suspicion of any kind of abuse towards a child or an elder, as well as domestic violence, needs to be reported.
So if someone goes to their child's pediatrician, or someone comes to you as a doctor and alleges abuse, what would you have to do?
I would have to report it.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right, doctor.